There is no such thing as a philosophy grounded in the self. You did not say that. I did not say that. We are not claiming all knowledge comes from our magical minds inside of us. It's like, no, evidence was in reality. And our mind had the ability to interpret the senses. We use the percepts and paint these ideas to say, oh, all right, these are concepts now. Let's see what these percepts have in common. We've got these concepts. And let's eventually put these concepts together and get some principles. And let's apply these principles to learn a little bit more about how we understand the world.
There's just a couple of things that caught my attention. Kind of like wrote about a few things and some messages and comments to people. A couple shorts caught one short caught my attention, and another, some feedback on the short that I released for the channel. This was kind of went crazy, but I'm putting that as a secondary thing. But I kind of want to just play the short. This is, it shouldn't be like about 3 minutes or maybe at the most, and just get your feedback on it and tell me what you think about it.
Nice.
To set it up a little bit, is the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I think these are intelligent Black men, and I'm always kind of interested in what intelligent Black men, especially young intelligent Black men, are talking about, because that's kind of like it's like the pathway for the future, especially if they have influence.
Right.
So just want to hear what you think about this thing. Are you familiar with Mark Lamont Hill?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. So he's been a political commentator a lot. He's a professor, PhD, Temple University. Now he's on the Joe Budden's podcast. He used to be on CNN before. He does some work on, what is that Black channel that's on? Is that News One or something like that? Or News Nation or something like that? Like Black news outfit on the internet. But does a lot of commentary. I think his PhD is in anthropology, if I'm not mistaken. I think he got fired from CNN because he made a comment about Israel that pissing people off. So that's him.
That's about right.
It's
crazy.
This is the Grits and Eggs podcast. And it's two dudes. The one dude that's the speaker most of the time is Deontay Kyle. And he's like been up and coming for a while in the podcast space, and he's blackety black and black, you know, it's super black, but whatever, you know, I think he's smart. Don't always agree with the positions at all, but I just wanted to set up these two people just to say this, you know, I respect, I think that there's intellect there, so I think there's something to be respected.
Just the idea of Black futurity, the idea that Black folk will exist in a future, that there is a world that includes Black people at a time where we're told that Black people don't have a future, or where we aren't necessarily convinced that there is a future.
Right.
That alone might give us the mental fortitude and the creative imagination to solve the problem of today. Because I know, like you said earlier, that somebody's grandmama or great-great-grandmama imagined a world that included us, even if they didn't live to see it.
Absolutely.
That kind of creative imagination might not be wrapped up in a political line, but it might be wrapped up in a gospel song.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I don't know that my pain can be healed, but then I hear that there's a balm in Gilead, or if I don't know how to deal with the dislocation of being an African in America, and I'm reading the Psalms, and I'm like, well, how do I sing the Lord's song in a strange land? And then Black folks say, well, I sing because I'm happy.
Because I'm free.
Yeah, free. Yep.
Hey. And I know he watches me.
Yep.
Man, look, bro. When I tell people that you need to plant a tree that you might not be able to enjoy the shade of, that is the whole concept.
That's what it's about, man. That's the beauty. But that's only if you get out of the European mindset.
Hell yeah.
You get out of what we call the Cartesian logic of cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, which is about the individual.
Yeah.
And you embrace the Ubuntu principle.
Yeah.
I am because we are.
Hey,
Bingo.
there you go.
It's a whole different framework.
It is, and it's and it, you know, then what? Okay, this is so crazy. I didn't realize, now that you said it, I didn't realize like that's how I'm raising my children with the Ubuntu mentality. Is that when you fuck up, everybody's in trouble.
Yeah,
because now y'all will hold each other accountable. But not only that, when you good, y'all all good.
Everybody good.
and that's the important part. Otherwise, it's just collective punishment.
Yeah,
Right. But otherwise, you just do some Israel shit. But
yeah, nah, no, yeah.
But no, we all benefit.
Yeah,
all
because
grow,
sometimes
yeah.
I do that, like, oh, like if there's a gross like, oh, you just like ignoring these rules, like you just being rebellious, and then I'd be like, all right, everybody give me their phones. Sometimes it's just like, just to feel that, oh, not only like have I become responsible for his actions, but now you understand that your actions affect other people.
Exactly. Gwendolyn Brooks, in her poem to Langston Hughes, said, "What we are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond."
Bingo.
Yeah.
That's
and
it.
that as abstract as a concept that is going to be to some people, that is the simplicity that I live with. Right?
It's because they're interconnected. Just the idea of Black future.
Yeah, so that's all that is.
That's fair. I mean, I don't like the words, and I don't like the language, but the concept is clear, and I appreciate that. That's a helpful point. It's like, hey, we need each other. Yes, we do. People are stronger together. We are. Yes, that is a cool point to make and key to remind everyone. Like, hey, there's a purpose here. It's going to require time, energy, effort, and sacrifice. The people who sacrificed for us got us to this point because they worked together to effectively build what we need to have now. I'm like, all right, yes, sure. Yes. Anyway, there is a danger for people to take this in a collective way and then say, this means I'm not a person without my community. It's like, you're getting too excited. Let's stay focused on the true part.
I mean, I think it's beyond this a danger. I think it explicitly was said that.
I think it was explicitly said. Yes, it's true.
And I think, but I want to credit him with articulating it well, because the way he said it and what he said is basically you need to evaluate this with a different logic. And he criticized the European logic of being about the individual and characterized the African logic as being collective. And if you know anything, well, you know about my work, I'm explicitly saying the opposite thing.
Yes,
and
100%.
And the reason, and I think it was interesting to me, your response, because it was more of I feel like you accepted what he said, like in a colloquial sense, or like in a regular. Yeah, he said this, but he really means that. And my thing is, no, he knows exactly what he's saying. He's a PhD, and that's why he did it, said it specifically. Like, no, this is a specific logic, and this is a different logic. And I'm like, there's no way we should be going back to a primitive collective logic. Now, it'd be one thing if I'm just sitting here listening to somebody who's just kind of like lazy with the understanding of he knows exactly what he's saying.
He does. But also, anyone who brings up collectivism without addressing individualism is using a stolen concept. It's not possible for there to be a collective if there are not individuals. And therefore, if you disrespect the individuals, you cannot even get to a point of having a collective. And I think that it's disingenuous, it's foolish, it's unwise, it's wrong to start with the idea of collectivism is the hype. We have to do it because we have to work together. I'm like, hey, that's a great place for us to get to and work towards. But we have to start at the fact that we need to first have something. We can't share. We can't even talk about the idea of sharing unless we talk about the idea of production. We must get to production first, and then we can talk about rights. And then we can talk about what it looks like on a long-term basis for us to work together. Independence or interdependence is a actual value. There is a real case to be made. We just can't skip all the steps and end with, you just got to take care of each other.
Yeah. See, I think my attitude or understanding of this has evolved over time. Whereas I believe from what I've learned is that there really isn't a real legitimate conception of the individual until you get through the collective mentality. I think the collective mentality is like what you start with. Once again, it's back to that whole subject-object relationship of development, right? And I understand in general, I think what we've done is through development and understanding is we've been able to pull apart the pieces where as though a person can find their individuality, but individuality exists within a collective, right?
That's how it's framed.
Well, it has to be because humans are social beings and we have social relationships. So there's no world where we are totally isolated.
No. Absolute absolute individualism doesn't exist.
Right. But the whole idea of being able to individuate, that's what the whole individuation process from Jungian and what other psychotherapists talk about, like is that, yeah, there's a group, but you have to be able to individuate from the collective instinct. I don't know if they call it the shadow, but that part of it. So I understand what you're saying. Like, yes, that's true. Groups are a result of people, but developmental-wise, social development, that's not so much the case. The individual is born out of the group, right? And our ability to recognize it now and to hold space for the individual has been a development.
I mean, it's fine to say that the individual is influenced by the group. I just think that there's a social, no, that's the wrong word. There is a way that the current modern, postmodern society has talked about and thought about this idea of individualism and collectivism that is unhelpful. I'll say it that way. That's the kindest I can be. And I would love for there to be more of a focus on the logic of it. And I think, yes, it takes two people to come together to make a third person. And you're like, oh, look, see, we're social. I'm like, hey, those are multiple people. Sure. And the new person they made is being influenced by the parents, this society, by all this. Yes, influences exist from the environment, from the people in the environment, and from the other forces in the environment. Sure. That does not negate the fact that the new person that is made has a job, has responsibility to make their own choices, to become a person, to develop an identity, to form these things and make some building blocks of what they believe, what they care about, who they are. And that will be influenced by everything else around them. Sure. Cool. That influence, just because these influences exist doesn't mean the individual has to accept them or make them their own identity. We get choices. And because we have choice, we have an individual responsibility to put together a person, to build a life, to build a self that is worthwhile. And I think that is the part I want to emphasize more often. Like, hey, we get to make choices, you all. We have agency. These are things that we have the responsibility for. And that happens day by day. Sometimes it happens consciously. Sometimes we just go with the flow and just pick up whatever our environment gives us. Either way, these are choices that are made. And so I think I would love people to recognize that they have this responsibility and this agency to say all the time, growing up, Whether you're good at it or bad, you did it.
I don't disagree, but what I'm saying to you is that is an end result. That is, from everything I'm understanding about that is an end result. That is a place that you arrive at or can arrive at going through the collective space. Like, there is no, these things exist as necessary ends. Like, if you look at Jung's types and functions, they both have to exist, the extroversion and the introversion, right? And so the whole concept is individuating from the collective, which to me, because if I look at Fromm and Jung and maybe even Rand, I'm not sure, but definitely Kegan, there's that whole process of, there's a socialization process, but then through that after that socialization process, then there becomes a self-authoring process that you can then, or development level. But I don't think that you can go straight from before that socialization process to the self-authoring. I think you have to go through it.
I think you are always self-authoring, and we just sometimes are more aware of it. But after we've gone through enough of it and get that experience, by the time we've gone through a lot of that socialization process, we are much better at self-authoring when we're at the later stages of development. Maturity does give you that bandwidth, which is, I think, is great. All I'm saying is that it's a responsibility of the individual throughout their lifetime to do it. And I think when we don't acknowledge that, it makes me uncomfortable.
But see, the thing, there's a big distinction here that I think is so hard to explain. And that's why I tried to make the videos that I make on my channel. Because there's the steps 1 and 2. But I'm thinking about Kegan right now. And I mess these and I integrate these with these other these other systems of thought. But in step 2, it's really just impulsive and instrumental. And it's I'm self-authoring, but it's without regard to anybody else. It's like, I want this, I'll take this. This is, everything is mine. Everything revolves around me. And
Right.
then after that third step is the socialization process, which is like, oh, other people exist and things that I do affect them. Oh, I didn't even know they were there. Or, that whole realization.
Yes.
But then some people get stuck there and think like, oh, I'm just working in the social sphere. But then that's how you get to the self-authoring piece, the way that is defined in his system, is that, yeah, I like things, I want things, but there are other people who are affected by my activities as well. But I can't let that totally define me. I'm going to make my own decisions with the understanding of how my decisions affect other people as well. But that seems very much similar to the instrumental phase. And I've heard Jordan Peterson say this is like independence, or I forgot what he said it, but independence or individualism is very much almost indistinguishable from narcissism. But to me, that's that difference, that I'm independent and don't give a shit about anybody else, and I'm independent and this is the principle I will operate, under with this group. And that's a big distinction.
That's huge. That's development. That's actual maturity throughout a process of thinking. So yeah, you don't start with that level of maturity.
Yeah, and that's the only thing that because the troubling thing about this to me in this particular video is that I have an understanding that this is the older way of thinking. This is what I would identify with tribalism, what I would identify with primitivism, and I don't see that as a goal. It's like, oh, the individual pathway is too hard. I'm going to go back where it felt good and comfortable. And it's not an ideal, and it's being painted as an ideal, whereas I'm like, well, rights don't exist there. Individual rights don't exist there because there's no individual to recognize. It's like, oh yeah, you and me and I'm you, and if you fail, I fail, and you can't. When you approach the world like that, you can't generate a justice based on individual rights. It doesn't exist. So, and I'm just accepting. Yes, I'm definitely going to accept the idea that, yeah, individual rights is better than the collective systems and groups versus groups, and because all that group versus group is just might equals right, and
Yep.
mob rule, and
Mob rule.
and so it's not better.
I mean, it's not. It's not better. It's not moral. It's not good. It's not beneficial. Long term, it fails. It always destroys. It is a terrible reasoning process, and I think you could make a clear point that saying this is a way of thinking that has harmed lots of cultures, lots of people. It's a terrible portion in that sense. I think that part is clear. I don't think you can call it old. I think it's very recent that we're doing this, and I think it's very terrible in human history where we have used this claim to the group to appeal to for morality, because people who believe in collectivism will say you can have individual rights as long as we vote on it and we all say you can have it. Look, you can have it. I'm like, but that's actually not a moral stance. Yes, I hear you. You can just elect to treat people however you want to at a certain time, and maybe that'll last for 10, 20, even 100 years. But when those people who voted on that go away, the next people may say, maybe we don't like this group, and this group over here doesn't get individualized rights anymore. Maybe, for the good of the group, we should certainly make sure that this bad element is treated differently. I'm like, and this is what mob rule does. This is how pure democracies work. This is how majority rule goes. Like it's a terrible way of putting the locus of control in the quote unquote group, which always changes and is always being influenced by somebody more than another.
Yeah, I think so. When I say it's an older part, I'm saying that I think you really kind of had to understand how I view development, because I just think that born as a kid, we are naturally just collective. And when I say collective, I just mean that there's no distinction between self and other. I mean, this is what Kegan talks about. This is what a lot of people talk about when
they do talk about it. But like you just said, babies and children and people who are in the lower portions are the most self-absorbed people in the world. They don't, when there's only division between self and other, because others don't even exist. So they start off with that.
Right. But what, yes, that's true. But it's because they can't, because Jung says it's because the collective mind can only project. Like they just pretend it's not pretending. All they do is they just assume that you obviously think what they think.
There you go.
And yeah, I think it's I don't necessarily think that it's knowing. I think a lot of times people are impulsive and they just haven't come to understand and be aware that other people have negative consequences from their actions.
Right.
But I still would identify with a collective piece, just because you really don't have any choice. There is a element of life and survival that you can't avoid, where just might is right. In social settings, and when it's just barbarism, you don't have to articulate it. You don't have to put it in philosophy, but you'll know might is right. I mean, I did an interview. I did an interview with one guy. He was like, back in the day, you had to be smart, but you also had to know how to fight. You know what I'm saying? Because because at the end of the day, you are vulnerable to the social happenings.
Yes. I mean, to the environment, period. You are vulnerable because you live on Earth.
Yeah.
and therefore nature is going to have its way with you, and other people who have more force, more power than you in general will exert that power regardless.
Right.
And if you happen to be in the way, then you are the one who is wiped away or taken advantage of.
Right. And but this is the whole idea to me. This tribalism is rooted in. Oh, I've got more people. I've got bigger muscles. And then that's what I mean about the whole collective pieces. And then it's us versus them. They look like that. We look like this. We've got bigger people. And it's just, it's an instinctual way of being. That's how I look at it. I think it's a step in development. I don't think that I believe that it's all collective until you are able to exit and pull yourself out of that concrete mentality. That's the way that I've learned it and the way that I understand it. So, and the only one other piece that I would just like to put on it is that, because people always get this mixed up when they hear individualism, they're thinking like, well, what, you just want to be an asshole, you want to do whatever you want to do, and no rational individual thinks that. They just deal with people under certain terms, under certain principles. They deal with people under like principle of responsibility, of honesty, some theory of justice in a sense, right? And that's, and they don't, I don't think any rational person is like, yeah, I don't give a shit about anybody. That's not a rational perspective. Like, think about capitalism.
It's not a right perspective, but it is a common one in the sense of people frequently conflate all individualism with self-absorption, narcissism, and even abuse. They're like, those are the same. They're the same in my book. I'm like, oh, we have to make a clear distinction then between what it means to be self-responsible versus what it means to be actively taking advantage of someone. Because you seem to think those things are the same. And that's a huge difference. And the big difference in between there is the justice, is the morality, and is the fact that if you are a true individual, you aren't taking advantage of others, because that wouldn't be individualistic. That would now rely on others. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if you want to be a producer of a thing, of a widget, of a factory, of a fruit, if you want to be a farmer, you don't have to go and steal other people's fruit. You need to learn how to actually farm. See, farming makes sense. Stealing is different. Those are not the same, even though they're being done by one person. The one person is the thing they have in common. The actions are vastly different.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's the largest leverage point, is to clarify that distinction.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people really understand what that distinction means. And I don't think that they understand that distinction rests on the concept of choice. When you say morality, the whole concept of morality is about choice. Because if you're not making decisions, like, what would morality be if everything was predestined and it wasn't based in choice? Like,
right. It's just fate. It's no longer morality. Yes. Morality it depends completely upon the choices you make and the effects those choices have.
Right. And to me, that's the collective perspective has an issue with that, because from everything that I've learned, it's very much, it's has a tendency toward deterministic or determinism. And there are no choices, or the circumstances of your life dictate the choices that you make, and you don't really have any control over that. And that's why people fight for things like, we got to put money here because we know if somebody's poor and they grow up, then they're going to have problems. We have to set the factors of their life in a certain way that deterministic aspect of life kicks in.
Right.
And
they think environment determines personhood and determines really just people's trajectory, which is a whole. Anyway, I agree. Yes, this is a collective trend, and a lot of people who have a collective mindset have a similar point where they do think that the environment, if we just change that, people's behavior will be magically different. And that's all we got to do. All you got to do is teach them. If you just told them the answers, they wouldn't do bad things anymore.
Which is,
you don't understand why bad things happen at all.
No. And I think the easiest way to understand that, well, an example is when you look at spoiled children, spoiled rich children, they didn't have the circumstances you think that was supposed to lead to bad behavior. But look, they didn't have to make decisions or they didn't have to deal with the consequences of bad decisions. And look how that turns out. So I think that relates just to the conversation we had with Lincoln. When judgment, action, and consequences get disconnected, there's going to be a problem.
There you go. Yes. Every system needs good feedback. If you remove the feedback mechanisms from the system, it can no longer calibrate. It's only gonna go off from there. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's all I wanted to bring up as far as this talk, because I just thought it's destructive. I think it's destructive.
And it's clear. This was a very specific, clear example of like, look, collectivism in its natural environment. Like, yeah, that was very well. He gave a collective point very, very specifically. He wasn't. There was no mincing words. You have to
He's very clear.
Really use your mind to be like, but what if it wasn't what he said? Then it would be like this. And I can understand how it could be different. I like the different. What he said sounded crazy. But like, that's probably that's definitely what he thinks. I mean, he's not lying to you. He really thinks this.
I think a lot of people think that. I applaud him for being articulate about it, though. That's what, for him to say, he said the quiet part out loud.
Out loud.
That's what I love. You know, and at least he knew what he was. You need a whole different logic here. You need a logic that does not connect to the individual judgment of people. We need a collective judgment. And I'm like, oh, no, thank you. No, thank you. Oh man, you got time for another quick one, man? Not a video, but this is just some feedback from this is I'm not going to bore you with this because this is a lot, but we got a comment on this video, this clip that we did about deconstruction, basically being parasitic. That's the topic. I mean, that's the title of it, you know. And got one comment, just one person, and I just want to show you. He wrote a lot, man, and this is a personal thing for me. I'm not a big fan of deconstructionists. I've had interactions with them, and it hasn't been very helpful. It's typically not very helpful. So this dude, if I go into the comments here, and I say all comments, I think this might be the original. Oh yeah, this is the original comment. So basically his feedback is, this gives away the whole problem. Their philosophy is built around itself and not what is supported in evidence. We're not necessarily deconstructing the ideas that we created ourselves. If that's a problem, explain how. Otherwise, you're just telling me I feel certain, so it's the truth, and I have no way to separate that from a 2-year-old having a tantrum. So I knew this was going to be a problem because this is how deconstructionists are. And the linguistic analysis people, they very much, they get tied up on a thing, right? So the thing is, it's very empiricist, in my opinion. I'm not opposed to deconstruction, right? And I'm gonna go through a couple of his responses are so long. I can't even bring all of them up. But I'll just say that like this. I'm not opposed to deconstruction. And I don't think you're opposed to deconstruction at all either.
Right. We are analysts. All we do is deconstruct. That part is that is a foundation of how we get to first principles.
Right. It helps us. Right? It helps us. But deconstruction as an activity is not a primary. Life is construction. We are constructing things, and deconstruction helps us get to better questions, right? Or question things better. It's not a primary. It's not. Don't raise deconstruction to this elevated level like it's beyond life. And so this is what happened in this conversation. So for me, when he says the philosophy is built around itself, what I hear there is that I am evaluating evidence for the sake of evidence. That's what I hear. Right. And because if somebody were to say the philosophy is built around myself as like a selfish thing, as not even a selfish thing, as I don't have any care in the world other than me. That's one thing. I wouldn't want that. But what I'm hearing is that I don't really understand the concept of being an individual. And so therefore, I don't evaluate the evidence in its relationship to the individual. I evaluate the evidence in its relationship to some whatever thing that I feel like I'm trying to relate it to right now. That's what I get from it. I don't know if you get a different.
There's a bunch of assumptions that are being made that are unhelpful and not what we're talking about, in the sense of like we're both attacking straw men, or at least attacking different parts of this problem, which is very hard. When like, oh, the philosophy is built around yourself. All philosophy is built around the person who's speaking, because it's that person's philosophy. That's how philosophy works, right? It's the actual understanding that we have of the world. So like when I hear someone say their philosophy is built around themselves, I think that they mean that their philosophy is built to protect their things that they care about, their self, the values that you have of your own. Your philosophy is built to take care of your own self-esteem, your own self-confidence, your own self-respect. And I'm like, okay, that is something that people do that may not be relevant in this case. That may not be what we are even talking about on the whole. Like you said before, life is based off of construction. Only the actions change reality. When we come into life, the only way we get to stay alive is if we construct something to actively help us stay alive. We must go and acquire resources. We must go and farm and work and do things and relate to actively build a life and a lifestyle that will keep us alive. Construction has to happen. Step one, construction.
To
Later,
deconstruct, yes.
Right? Later, we can say like, hey, we did all these things. Some things work better than others. I wonder why. Now that I'm asking why, let me deconstruct that. Let's say what things we did, how that happened, what happened when we did that, and then figure out why that happened every time we did. And the more we ask why, the more we can deconstruct that to better understand the construction process. But the construction process is primary, the main point that we're getting at, and the main thing we're going to do to have life. After the life foundation is there, then we could talk about how helpful the deconstructive process is.
Right. And that's the point that I'm trying to kind of talk about with this person. I mean, you pretty much said everything that I said. Like, to me, that's how life works, right? Construction is how life
that's how
works.
Logic works. It's not, we're not asking people to believe us really hard. We're saying, look, we have evidence of logic. This is how everything is constructed.
Well,
now how can we build from here?
That's true. But even with life is primary. Life is primary to even logic. Like
Yes.
logic doesn't even exist before life.
Thank you. Yes.
So life comes first. We'll figure the logic part out later. You know what I'm saying? And so
it's just
so
the
for me,
prerequisite. Life is the prerequisite. It's not
right.
This is the assumption we made coming into the conversation, is that life happened and that construction happened. Those were the assumed basis of everything.
And that's to be the part that fell apart in this conversation with this dude, because he keeps agreeing with that, but then he keeps elevating. Like, all right, my response to that was basically, yeah, that's how life works. There's no knowledge outside of the perspective of living beings. And, you know, I'm saying like, yo, it's no kind of disembodied mystical knowledge that exists out there in a vacuum. Like, you have to be evaluating and deconstructing in the service of life. Because if you're not doing that, I don't know what you would be doing. I don't understand what any of this stuff would be. And he starts coming back. It's like, yo, it's a matter of epistemology. This is nonsense.
But he says philosophy should be grounded in what is supported in evidence. I'm like, that's
that's true.
We agree. Yes,
Yeah.
that is what we said. And the evidence is found in reality. And the reality shows that is how this works. We start with the construction, and that is the clear point. And there is no such thing as a philosophy grounded in the self. You did not say that. I did not say that. We are not claiming all knowledge comes from our magical minds inside of us, saying everything is how it works because it's how we think. It's like, nope. The evidence was in reality, and our mind had the ability to interpret the senses. We used the sensory information to process some of that and come up with these. We use the percepts and compare these ideas to say, oh, all right, these are concepts now. Let's see what these percepts have in common. Got these concepts, and let's eventually put these concepts together and get some principles, and let's apply these principles to learn a little bit more about how we understand the world. I mean, our brains are meaning-making machines, and that's what they are doing in this way. And so in no way, shape, or form is a philosophy grounded in the self. That was not a claim. That's not something we have to defend.
No.
That's not something that we're ever putting out there.
Yeah, and that's true. And I will say that I misspoke because I took his argument and didn't correct it. When I replied to him, I misspoke and kind of insinuated that, yeah, it is in the self. But I really what I meant was it's rooted in life. It's rooted in life in general, not necessarily the self so much. Right.
It's rooted in evidence of reality. Evidence of reality is where everything starts, and then the self gets to perceive that, and then we get to then speak out of that evidence.
But see, here's the tricky part to me, though, Josh. And the issue with this orientation that he's taking. The concept of evidence for someone who doesn't hold life as the primary is different. So he keeps saying that, yeah, sure, it's rooted in evidence. Sure, life is the primary, but there are people who give lip service to the concept of life. This is what I'm trying to say about his statement about, it's rooted in the self. The problem that I'm having here is that it's similar to what Jung used to talk about when he's talking about an empiricist worldview, whereas though people don't view evidence or reality in relationship to a person. They view evidence and reality and when I say a person, I mean an individual. They view evidence in relationship to like people as a species in a sense, not to an individual with values. Does it make sense what I'm saying to you? Because every time I'm thinking about philosophy, I'm thinking about you as a person who has your own values. I'm not thinking about you as a person that's just have flesh and ears and cilia and blood and guts and
more than the physical.
Yeah. And so to me what Jung says is like, yo, a lot of these scientific minded people, that mentality and that orientation is of value as it pertains to the observation or the collection of facts, but they don't have any idea what the hell those facts mean to the individual. And that's the point that I'm trying to say here, is that these people, this type of orientation is very in tune with facts in a vacuum. They can say that they're talking about this in reference to people, but they can't actually, they don't operate in action as if these facts are related to people. And I think that orientation is important, because you get lost. You start talking about evidence. Evidence of what? If it's not evidence to a person, what kind of evidence is this? You know? So it's just that, I mean, I don't want to go through this. This thing got so long.
See it, I'm just like, wow. But it's a lot of this is not genuine conversation. It really is. This is my perspective, but this is your perspective, but this is my perspective. And now we're having an argument because I want to be right. I'm like, okay, so now we're no longer talking about the topic anymore. And that's funny, but also it's not, what you're fighting for isn't helpful. It's not helping either one of us achieve our goals anymore physically in the world. Like, we're not actively better able to relate to the world and then get something done. We are now going back and forth. Like, I don't even see where it's productive, but it is interesting that it started as a claim to say construction matters. We should construct things. And it turned into, I'm right. And I think people have different perspectives, and you're wrong because you have a different one. I'm like, I don't think this is useful anymore.
Oh, you understand exactly what I'm saying. And he could not, like, at some point in time, because you're thinking about life, you're thinking about usefulness to life. This dude is like, he's thinking about useful to philosophy. I'm like, the things that you're saying don't really help me do anything. I don't, what he was deconstructing. So every time we get to a point, he's like, okay, now we've got to this point. Now let's break this down to this, that, and the other. And I guess his main point at the end of the day is, yo, this conversation has helped us understand what we meant, or what you meant when you used this word. Now we can begin building life. Because the value is, let's clean everything before we start building. And in no way in life is like this at all. And it's not to say that, and it's not to say that it's not nice to deconstruct things to get clean ideas. But the construction is always going to be faster than the goddamn deconstruction. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
And especially, and we don't get to start perfect, and that is a part of the process. We get to correct as we go, and that's true. I think if we get back to the point that construction matters and just focus there, that's helpful. And then when people say, "Oh, we need to deconstruct," I'm like, there is a time to deconstruct. When we encounter an obstacle, or when we just need better understanding and we get confused, let's take a moment, let's take a breather.
Now let's deconstruct.
And that there is a role for this after we get through the part of solving real. After we get to the part of just acknowledging, I guess, of just acknowledging the fact that we had to build something to get here, then we can start talking about how we can break things down to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, man. But I agree with you. I just think that it's problematic because there are parallels. The orientation has parallels. That's one of those issues. But there are things that are almost necessary as a result of that orientation that's very related to the collective mentality to me. But just the whole deconstructing process at some point I got to where you got. I'm like, where's the practical value of all of these things that these long messages? Where's the practical value? All of this effort being put into, what did you mean when you said the word life? And what did you mean when you said the word self? And okay, once we establish that meaning, and all of it at the end of the day for me is that, okay, if we do all of this, that means we're going to get to something that's useful, right? For me. For him, it was like, no, we already did the useful thing. We stripped it down. That's not that useful necessarily to me. Like, but what are we now building?
I did not need to strip it down. I had done that prior. I'd already done that work. I don't need to strip it down again. I got it. Yes. We're just trying to have a conversation about the fact that other people stripped it down to the part where it wasn't even useful for them. And I'm like, hey, that's not okay anymore. I can't use it. You can't use it. Why did you do that? Like, well, it's important to analyze. It's like, I spent all my time thinking about thinking. I have analyzed this to depth, but you know what? I analyzed it to depth that it was useful. I needed useful terms. I got them, and then I used them, and then it worked. And now when people say, but did you think about it? I did think about it. Well, I don't believe you. Let's think about it again. I'm like, I don't know if I can only spend my time here. I might need to move on to the next thing to think about. There might be other things happening in the world.
Right. Because you're rational, because you're a rational person, or you're attempting to be, whatever, you know? And so that's the crazy part. And this is, to me, the difference between like deconstruction and the Socratic method, right? Whereas though, yeah, we're breaking something down to build something better. Okay, I'm along with that. But deconstruction just keeps deconstructing to the point that we're talking about this meaning of the word the and that meaning of the word the is not, when do we build a thing again? When are we doing the thing that supports living life? Yes. When do we start doing that thing?
There are diminishing returns. We have to realize that we can break things down to almost infinite portions. We really only needed a few decimal points. Once we got to a general level of accuracy, we're like, you know what? This is usable now. Let's do that. It's like, well, we could be clearer. I'm like, we could. But we would have to all be in agreement on the exact same thing for it to be clearer than it already is. And that's not going to make us much better at this actual thing we're trying to do. And so because of that, maybe we don't all have to agree specifically to that level of specificity. I mean, if it's not going to change the outcome drastically enough, then we don't have to spend more time there. We only have so much time on Earth. We need to invest some way wisely. So, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, yes, man. I had to pull out one thing, though. It's a quote from Rand. All right. And it was relevant to the conversation to me. It's like, today there's a philosophy of linguistic analysis, which is a rationalization for men who are able to focus on single words, but unable to integrate them into sentences, paragraphs, or philosophical systems, yet who wish to be philosophers. And that's what we're left with. We're left with, did you mean the in this sense, or did you mean the in that? Is it life in this? Is it this? Dude, we're trying. That's what I told you. I'm like, yo, this is why people hate philosophy now. It doesn't do shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. You waited. You didn't get to the useful part. You made people suffer through all this extra stuff. She wouldn't get to the part that we could use.
Right. I mean, think about it. If he made somebody suffer through the extra stuff and then he built something nice and better at the end, would you be appreciative of that?
Yeah.
I would be appreciative of it. But they never build the stuff.
Right. It's like, oh, we didn't get back to the useful part. We just kept on saying, like, we could think about this differently. We can, and we do think about it differently. well, you're thinking about it differently than I'm thinking about it. I think we've established that. Yes, that is true. Well, you could think about it like I think about it. I mean, I could, but is that helpful? And what evidence is? What do you even mean by evidence? See, now we're going back to a point of like what definitions mean. And that's fine to have a definition, but some things you know what we mean, right? I don't. You knew enough to ask the question what I meant. Because, so you knew what I meant. You knew what I was referring to. Now you may have wanted a better thing or a different thing or a thing that might have lined more with your experience, but you knew what I meant.
I mean, even if you like, I swear, Josh, even if he doesn't, there's an orientation. The orientation matters because the orientation means that we're at least eventually we're trying to get to a place where we can introduce something that we can do, like something helpful, something that assists in life. Like, philosophy has to assist life. If it ceases assisting life, it's just trash.
Right. I mean, like my philosophy, meaning like the thing I get out of philosophy is the part where it assists my life. This is my preference, my bias, my perspective. That is why I am here. That is why I'm talking about it. It's what I'm learning about it for. Other people don't want to do that. And that's fine for other people. They have a whole career where they just don't apply anything they say. And that's something that they can do. But that's not the purpose. My expressed purpose in this conversation is to use this and use it well. And finding more people who are interested in doing that and have something to add is phenomenal. People who want to debate different things that aren't helping me calibrate or helping me move in the direction that I need to move into, then that's not interesting to me. They may be more accurate than me. They may be right. But if they're not getting me toward my goal, they're not helpful.
It's not. Oh yeah, that's true. I agree. But I'll insert my experience again here, man. When I went to that philosophy conference and I asked them the question. I mean, they're there doing philosophy, epistemology, and politics. And I say, well, what is your strategy for getting your ideas into the political sphere with people who make decisions? And it was crickets. So not only they may be coming up with better ideas, but they're not even taking them anywhere. So what are we I couldn't use the stuff that I saw. And they didn't try to deliver or, come up with a strategy for the stuff that they came up with. So who the hell does benefit? What is this beyond y'all like to play with ideas in the classroom? I don't know.
And
Where is it?
that may not be their goal, meaning they may have a different actual goal versus their express goal. So I think there's something to be said for that. When people are like, yeah, we're all about changing the world. I'm like, excellent. What are you doing today? We're not doing anything. I'm like, I don't think you are about changing the world. I think you are saying those words, but you're not doing those things. And that is a very common human trait. We all aspire to things. We all wish for things, but we can't compare or conflate the two. We can't say, oh, the dreamers are the same as the doers. I'm like, I mean, some of them, but not all. In fact, not most.
I mean, what I would say to you is that if I start a conference that says saving the world, and then I ask you, how are you saving the world? And you're like, I don't know. I'm confused.
Yes.
I'm very confused.
Yes.
When you have a conference about epistemology and politics, and I say, okay, well, what's your connection to politics and politicians? No, I've never really thought about that. I am confused.
Yeah. There you go.
Confused. And I don't feel like I'm wrong for being confused. I'm just saying, like,
it's not you. It's definitely them. Like, oh, you are here to talk about this topic. You are not here to do this topic. You are leaving that to others. And that's fair, but you advertise as if you were going to do it. but you were just going to talk about it. Okay. Well, at least we'd have that. At least you have that clarity now, and you got to experience it firsthand.
Yeah, and what it left me with is it's a bad taste. It's because I have this. You could call it a romanticism of philosophy or philosophers kind of guide society, but I've never really seen that in a real world example. I haven't seen that, and I
Not,
think what kind. Go ahead.
I mean, you've seen it generally over decades and stuff, where philosophers, they write the books, they influence the culture, things change slowly, but not a whole lot of active. I'm going to do this today.
Well, my conversations with one of the guys that were at the conference, that's a philosopher and a professor, is that, well, it's really kind of been filed down to little bits and pieces. Like, it's almost like how-tos. Philosophy has been grounded down into little bits of how to do this, how to do that. It's little clips of everything. Everything is ground down to little pieces these days. And I found that that's disappointing because I just think that philosophy is something like world building. You should be able to integrate more than how to's here and how to's there. I can get that from somewhere else and probably be better because it'd be more practical, right? Something that's a how to.
Yeah, philosophy is a great way to approach the world, to make meanings. So you have a better mental model. It's like, this is how things fit together. This is how we could do things. And this is how we can build on a premise to know, like, this is why this works. And this is when we say we believe this is what that belief means. It's resting on this level of evidence. And I love that idea. I love that concept of saying, like, that is a mental model I can get behind. That's how understanding is developed or it comes together. Let's talk more about that. How can I build on this level of understanding? How can I add to my foundation in a way that makes it more robust?
Yeah. And I agree. And that's what I want from it. But what I think is that there's been like this, I don't know what the word is. Basically, people have gone to other disciplines to be effective. And one of the examples that I see, and I don't agree with everything they do, is Jonathan Haidt, right? He's got his latest book has been The Anxious Generation. I think it's The Anxious Generation. He's talking about basically had kids and phones. And that's his focus right now with this book. But when I see his Instagram and stuff like that, I'm seeing him deliver strategies to do things, regardless if I agree or not, right? There's this whole idea and strategies to achieve the results that he was trying to get at. And regardless if I agree or not, I can respect the fact that there was a thought, there was a follow through, and there's action and something to do. You know, like basically he's just helping people raise their children in a way where they can actually do things for themselves again.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like one of the things was, I guess, I don't know if it was in the book, but the lady, I think it was in the book where he said, send your kid into the fast food store by themselves and let them get something. Oh no, send this kid into the store and let them buy something by themselves. And the lady, she did a recording. She was like, yo, oh man, I wonder if they're going to give him a hard time and then blah, blah, blah. He's like 5 years old or 6 years old. And he went in Chick-fil-A and he came out with the food and he felt, empowered. He did a thing. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's a stepping stone in the development of kids and mentality.
Yes.
So
yes, you want to match the obstacle with their ability and keep it just ahead so they can continue to grow. I think that requires a whole lot of, like we were talking about with Lincoln Stoller, just a whole lot of feedback, a whole lot of actively paying attention, being aware of what's going on, seeing what happened, and then, making sure you can close that loop to say, all right, we either worked this well or didn't work this well, and we're going to try it better next time.
yeah. And then hopefully if you can especially with kids, if you can get them to keep climbing, and then they just start getting the habit of understanding that there's momentum.
There you go.
There's a momentum
that
there.
virtuous circle going. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So those are pretty much the two things that I had. unless you had anything else.
I think we're good for now. That was all right.